What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It's me, Jason McIntyre. Talk the line. We're back, baby. March Madness edition. I am joined by my main man in Boston, Sammy P. We're fired up. We're going through every first round game in the NCAA tournament. Sammy, we didn't get a tournament last year. So does that mean you're going to fire extra on the first round this year?
You know I will not fire extra. You do know, though, it's been a while since somebody has cut down a net, and I came proper. I got Larry Bird right here in the three-point contest.
Yes, I have on my money green for St. Patrick's Day. Let's get started in the West with the #1 overall seed. Sam, it's Gonzaga, no doubt about it. Undefeated this season. They've won 23 straight games by double digits. They're going to face the winner of the play-in game between Norfolk State and App State. Sam, I got to ask, any action on the play-in game and your early thoughts on Gonzaga facing one of these low majors?
Not in the play-in game. I love that we started with this one, but we're not going to go there. I can tell you this number, depending on who the Zags play, we're talking about potentially a 25 or a 26-point spread. This will be a very popular play for the wise guys. They're going to come in, they're going to take Gonzaga's team total over, and they're going to lay Gonzaga's number in the first half. That's what they're ready to pounce on. Obviously, we don't have a matchup or a number yet, but that's what we're thinking, 25 or 26 points.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of laying the wood like that, especially this early in the tournament. Let's move on to the 8-9 game. Now, this is actually has the makings of something decent. Missouri and Oklahoma, a.k.a. Choklahoma, favored by 2. Sam, I'm sure you've seen the numbers. In 8-9 games in the last 15 years, the underdog hitting at 61%. So I took a little nibble, just a taste on Missouri here. Do you like Lon Kruger's Sooners, or do you like Missouri here?
I think the game is pretty even. So I think you got a good number with Missouri, especially at 2 on Fox Bet. Some books have it 1 right now. This could be literally 1 minute to go and it's tied. And you look at the point total, 140. I mean, we could be 68-68 with a minute left to go. I put Oklahoma on the line in my bracket. I've got them winning the matchup here, but I wouldn't fight you on the 2 points. I don't love either side. There are some sharp money guys on Missouri. They took 2 and they took 1.5.
Interesting. Sam revealing early he is a 1 bracket guy. I like 20 brackets, but we'll talk about that later. Let's move on to the 5-12 matchup. Sam, this for me, one of my favorite first round bets. Creighton 7-point favorites over UCSB. The Gauchos taking money early. This number has come down. Creighton, we know, a great shooting team. This game will be played in Lucas Oil Stadium, not one of those small bandboxes that these teams are used to. Sam, I definitely am on UCSB here. We know the history of 12/5. Creighton went through an incident with their coach late in the season. They got their doors blown off in the Big East tournament. I'm all over UCSB here.
Yeah, the big move in this one's actually on the total. Line open 140. You see some 137.5 and 137. It's tough to get behind Creighton when you watch them play in the Big East against Georgetown. I mean, they weren't inspired. They didn't look motivated. And then, honestly, J-Mac, they quit at half. But there will be that avalanche of money. Once this number gets down, I think it's going to keep going, maybe 6.5. Maybe we even see a 6. There will be resistance the other way. Sharp money will come in and lay the 6. But you do have it sort of settling right now on 7. I like Creighton to advance. Don't feel good about them to cover.
Yeah. UCSB, one of the few dogs that I like in the first round. Let's move on to the next one, Sammy. This is another juicy underdog and major line movement right out of the gate here. Ohio, yes, featuring Jason Preston. We'll get to him in a second. 7-point dogs against Virginia. I guess we can call them the defending champs. They won the last tournament there was. Remember, Virginia 3 years ago loses in the first round to a 16. First time that's ever happened. Then they win the title. Then the COVID pause. They come in now with another COVID situation, Sam. I don't know how you handicap this, because depending on who you read, okay, Virginia has been quarantined. No practice. They're not traveling until later in the week to the site here. So they could go in really rusty, having not played in a while. And Jason Preston is a name you want to remember. I had him in the first round of my mock draft for Fox Sports. This kid kind of, sort of, if you squint, Sammy, reminds me a little bit of LaMelo Ball because of the hair. I like Ohio here. I did put some on the money line.
Good. Well, I can fight you on this one because I love Virginia at the number, because this is about the numbers on Talk the Line. You missed the boat on Ohio. The number opened up 10.5, got to 10, got to 9.5, got to 9, and now we're sitting at 7. This is the ultimate buy low spot. Like, this is the sharpest side of the tournament, but you missed the move if you're chasing to the Ohio side. You could have gotten 10.5. You could have gotten 10. And now you can lay a good number on Virginia at -7. They're going to do their best to get the ball out of Preston's hands, and tempo is a killer here. A lot of these teams in the smaller conferences, they play with pace. They go up and down the court. Virginia wants none of that. They're going to slow this thing down to a crawl, and I like their guard play. Kihei Clark, Sam Hauser, obviously in the fold as well. I think Virginia is a really good spot. Nobody likes Virginia, and to me, that's dangerous. Yeah. I love them at -7.
I think the last time we did this, heading into the Super Bowl, nobody liked Tampa Bay. Everybody was on KC. So I think you said this opened at 10. I got it at 9.5, and then I bet at 7.5, down to 7. Sam, honestly, this could touch, it would not shock me, 6.5 as we get closer to tip-off. Any thoughts on it going lower?
I don't know that it goes that much lower. It could touch 6.5, honestly, but then you will see a blitz of money. Like, I know people that are waiting in the wings to fire 7. So if it gets down to 6.5, that gives you that extra half point. And as we know, every half point matters in this racket. There will be opposition. If it's 6.5 or 7 on game day, it'll tick back up to 8, maybe 7.5 or so. But there will be the push on Virginia, that's for sure. We've already seen it on Ohio, but the line isn't where it was. There's been a 3.5 point move already, and that's usually bad if you're chasing the dog.
Yeah, that's a massive move in college basketball. All right, let's get to the bottom half of the West. USC, the 6th seed, they will be facing the winner of Wichita State and Drake. Sam, I'll let you beat up on Wichita State, easily the worst team in the field. A lot of accounts say they were the last team admitted. Drake is spicy. I think they could give USC some problems after they dispatch Wichita State. But any early read here on Evan Mobley's Trojans?
Well, I've got Drake in the game for starters against Wichita State, and the favorite has actually flipped there. We've started to see Drake laying the wood here at a Wichita open -2, and there's been a lot of money on the Drake side. It looks like Hemphill is going to be able to give it a go, too, for the Bulldogs. That's a big deal, a big boost for their lineup because very good scoring player. But you're talking about a situation here against USC. You know, if it's Wichita or if it's Drake, you're thinking USC probably a 5.5, probably a 6-point favorite in that range. We know the deal with the Trojans. They're very good on both ends of the floor. Ken Pom and the analytic guys, they love USC. That's probably your number here. I'd lean to Drake. I think Drake wins, but also, J-Mac, that team that gets in and plays that first game, we've seen Syracuse in years past win the opening game, win the play-in game, get in and get hot. A lot of these teams that win that play-in game, they have a sense for the floor, they have a game under their belts, and it's easier for them to adjust when you come in cold against USC.
Yeah, a lot of people, Sam, will say, oh, Luka Garza is the best player in the region. No, it's Jalen Suggs. I'm telling you, it's Evan Mobley. Wait till you guys see this kid. He's kind of a Kevin Garnett, Chris Bosh hybrid. Very long. He's a true 7-footer. I mean, he blocked 10 shots in 2 Pac-12 tournament games, 10 double-doubles this year. He's just going to be too much of a load for Drake. By the way, your Drake team started 18-0. The wheels have come off a little bit since then, 7-4 down the stretch. I like USC as a dangerous team. I think they actually take down the next game we're about to talk about. Kansas coming in as the 3 seed, yet another. We could just call this the COVID region, huh? Kansas, 10.5-point favorites over Eastern Washington. Sammy, my only play here, just a nibble on the Eagles, simply because I don't know what the heck's going on with Kansas. They had to pull out of the Big 12 tournament. No, they have COVID issues. I think 2 of their top 4 players are expected to miss this game. A lot of uncertainty. It's probably a stay away. Anything from you here?
Nobody wants to bet on Kansas, which I think is advantageous for somebody like me because I love to sort of fade the noise. I mean, Kansas, they're getting no love in the region. They're as high as 12-1 to win the region because, of course, they're in the Gonzaga bracket. But 10.5, like the bookmaker, by putting this number up, is telling you this is likely a blowout. And there will be some people that'll take all the points with Eastern Washington because Kansas isn't as strong as they've been in years past. But when I see a number like this, around 10, 10.5, or 11, they're almost sort of kind of winking at you and nudging you like, hey, come on in, take all these points, and you could look up late second half and KU's up 18 or more.
Yeah, and Bill Self, a great coach in the first round. The problem is this isn't one of his better teams, Sam. Like, you asked me who's their best player. I couldn't tell you. Do they have a lottery pick prospect? No. Now, Eastern Washington's no great shakes, but I just took it out of principle, just given the Kansas uncertainty. But let's move on to the next game. This is a team, oh boy, I really like this team. I'm sure Sam's going to kill me for it. The Oregon Ducks, quack, quack, yes. Dana Altman and the Ducks, 5.5-point favorites over VCU, featuring one of the coolest names in the tournament, Bones Highland. He can ball. I'm all over Oregon here, Sammy. I'll explain it later, but why don't you go into why you hate my Oregon Ducks here?
Dana Altman has been one of the most profitable coaches in the tournament. And this goes back to when he was at Creighton, when he had a guy by the name of Kyle Korver. Does that ring any bells? I don't like to bet against a lot of coaches. You know, for years, I would never bet against Bo Ryan. I don't like to bet against Coach K in the tournament. And I don't like to bet against Dana Altman. Now, that might be a stretch to include him in that conversation as far as the greats of college basketball. But this VCU team, you know, they can be beaten by good guards. And we know the Ducks have good guards. The way VCU gets you in trouble is when you have a point guard or a couple point guards that don't know what they're doing. And that's not the case with Oregon. That's not a weakness for them. I know I love my dogs, but I do not love this dog. That's for sure.
Yeah, Oregon's point guard, Will Richardson, healthy again. He missed a bunch of games earlier this season. 3 of their 6 losses were without him. I'll tell you right now, Dana Altman, 14-5-1, Sammy, against the spread. One of the most profitable coaches in this tournament. I highly suggest backing him here. Another guy to watch for is Duarte, the Oregon wing. Probably a first-round pick. Could slide into the lottery. 23-year-old. Sam, I know you're with me. You like these old college kids, right? The guys hanging around like they're in the movie Old School. This kid, 23 on the wing. He can play both ways. Love it a lot. I like Oregon. One of my favorite bets in round 1. All right, let's round out the West region with the Iowa Hawkeyes. Big favorites over Grand Canyon and one of the heroes of March Madness, Bryce Drew. I could go on like for 5 minutes just gassing up Bryce Drew, the legend from Valpo who hit that classic shot in the late 90s. But tall order here against a very good Hawkeyes team. Any action on this one, Sam?
This total is really hitting at 145. And I think when you think about the way Iowa would like to play, they'd probably like to be, you know, in the 160 range. So this is actually a testament to the team that Grand Canyon has. I think the fact that this total is lower than, you know, 155, 160, that's good news for Grand Canyon. Problem is you have so many weapons you have to stop with Wieskamp on the outside and Bohannon. And if you come out and you come to the three-point line, they just dump it into Luka Garza, who's clearly a player of the year candidate. So there's a lot of ammo for Iowa, but I will tell you the total tells me that Grand Canyon can keep it close. The question is, can they finish? A lot of teams can hang around for 20 or 25 or 30, but can they hang around for 40? That final 8 minutes of the second half, it'll be huge for Grand Canyon.
So a lot of the shows you're going to hear, oh, Luka Garza, great. We're going to give you this stuff, okay? Grand Canyon has a 7-footer from Denmark. Shot 71% from the field this year, 14-10. This kid can play. Now, Luka will pull him to the outside and try to take advantage from deep. But I think Grand Canyon could be plucky for a half here. We'll see. All right, let's round out the West. Sammy P., your pick in the region to advance to the Final Four.
Well, it's chalky here on the Gonzaga side, but if you're looking for a sleeper, I mean, Kansas to win the West.
Wow.
You know, the chalk on Gonzaga gives you, you know, better, you know, juice on everybody else. You know, Gonzaga being minus 230, minus 240, minus 250, that raises the stakes on everybody else. And I think Kansas, they do it with defense. You said earlier, can you name their best player? Yes, their guard, Garrett, is very good. But the thing is, they do it in the paint with rebounding and with paint protection, and they're going to take away the rim. So they're going to dare Gonzaga to beat them from the outside. We've seen they can do that. I like Gonzaga in my bracket, but for betting value, you got to look low, and you got to go Kansas at 7-1.
I'm stunned, Sammy. I am floored. I'm picking myself off the floor. Kansas! That is the first big shocker on this show. Now listen, Mark Titus, the expert, you know him from Fox, the podcast, everything. He's going to come on later, and I'm sure take you to task for this. I don't think he's going to hate my Oregon Ducks. Let's get the Ducks in the West. I love Dana Altman. I talked about him earlier. Listen, plus 2,500. And Sam, you can be honest with me. If you look at this region, I actually think Oregon's path is easier. If you're not a true believer in Iowa, you know, and you think it's a Garza Bohannon show and Oregon can scheme them out with their great defensive ideas. I talked to Casey Jacobson, Fox college basketball analyst. He likes this Oregon team a lot. He's familiar with the West Coast. 2,500 to 1 to win the West, a team with a coach who went to the Final Four recently. Sammy P., you want to crap on that at all? You want to take some shots at me or no?
No, I love how you think I'm always going to cut you down. Here's the good thing about a team at 25-1. They don't even have to win the West for you to make money. If they can get through the first weekend and you have that 25-1 in your back pocket, this is what a lot of pro bettors do. They'll take a team. They don't have to go to the Final Four. But, J-Mac, if they go to the Sweet 16 and they make it to the Elite 8, in that Elite 8 game, you've got 25-1 in your back pocket, and you can't lose. So this is not necessarily something that has to win for you. They just have to get through that first weekend, and then you can get creative there.
Parker Lewis, baby, can't lose. I like it. I like it. All right, so I want you to crap on my picks. I feel like Jeff Schwartz. Remember, he came after me every week in football. I thought you'd be coming at me. But listen, maybe we're just two smart guys agreeing. All right, let's get to the South. Let's get started with a team that's they're decent. The Baylor Bears. 25.5-point favorites over Hartford. Again, laying the lumber at over 20 is like betting a two touchdown favorite in the NFL. Shouldn't really do it, but Sammy, are you taking the bait here?
I would love to take the points with Hartford, but it's a solid pass for me. I can tell you, I talked to one sportsbook director in Vegas. He said this is the highest handle game so far. The wise guys came in, they took 23.5, they took 24.5, up to 26, up to 27, and then the crash the other way. There were people fighting around 25 and 26 on Baylor and Hartford, and this is a very popular game because some people are very high on Baylor. Others have watched them play since coming back from that huge break after the COVID stuff, and they've been a little disjointed. I mean, they didn't play well down the stretch. Obviously got bounced in the conference tournament. It's a big number to lay, but Hartford is just going to get – I mean, they're going to be guys up in Hartford's face. I sort of feel for Hartford. This might be a frustration play here. I don't love laying 25.5, but I'm certainly not in any rush to take it with Hartford.
All right, just one quick note. Baylor, the best three-point shooting team in the country. Sam, they play the first game at Lucas Oil Stadium, okay? Three-point shooting team, big dome, we'll see. All right, let's get to the 8-9 game. This one's spicy, folks. Two really solid teams. UNC, 1-point favorites over Wisconsin. Contrasting teams here. Wisconsin's going to get slaughtered inside. UNC has 4 guys, 6'10" or over. The Badgers, though, they're kind of the darlings. People are shocked they're a 9 seed because the analytics love them. Sammy P, I'll tee you up on this one first. Who you got?
The Badgers never beat themselves. I mean, they're number 2 in the country in turnover ratio. They're very good defensively. And, oh, by the way, you know that North Carolina turns it over like 20 times a game, right? Like that's their favorite thing to do. And we talk about North Carolina and the prestige and Roy Williams' record in the first game and all that. I don't care because I think Wisconsin, coming from the Big Ten, they're more battle-tested. They take care of the sugar, and they also shoot the ball better from 3. Free throw line is also an area of concern for North Carolina. So while you might like bully ball, you got to get it in a defense. It's not easy to move the ball against Wisconsin. Certainly not easy to go into the paint. This will be a side. This will be pros against Joes. The books are going to need Wisconsin here, and I'll be on the side of the books. I know you like Carolina, but I'm going Bucky Badger here.
I get it. Wisconsin, battle-tested. But the last time, Sam, they beat a tournament team was like 2 months ago. Okay, they lose all these games against good teams. And I know North Carolina, like one of my tried and true March-isms is seniors and great guard play. North Carolina has 2 freshman guards. Like, that's not ideal. They're a bunch of bricklayers from the perimeter. One of the worst offensive teams that Roy Williams has had in a while. But they're so big, they get all the offensive rebounds and the putbacks. This is going to be a rock fight. I would not be shocked if this were like 57, 56 or something. I'm on Carolina here. I think the size wins out, but Roy Williams has let me down just a few times in March. So we'll see what happens with the Tar Heels. All right, let's move on, Sammy, to the next one. This is an interesting game because Villanova had the COVID issue earlier this season and then the big injury to Colin Gillespie, their senior leader. A lot of money coming in on Winthrop. Villanova, 6.5-point favorites. They're 0-2 without Gillespie. Bad loss to Providence. And then the Big East tournament loss. Winthrop, we'll see. Can they take advantage of a wounded Villanova? Sammy, which side you on here?
Yeah, the animal's bleeding right now in the forest, and you need to jump on them early. I will say, full disclosure, there were 3 teams coming into the season I circled as potential sleepers. Number 1 was Winthrop. Number 2 was Bryant, and they lost in their conference title game. I'm still frustrated about that. Number 3 was Loyola Chicago, and that's unfortunate because they get Illinois in round number 2 if they do beat Georgia Tech. But I am bullish on Winthrop. I love them going into last year's tournament, J-Mac, when they finally punched their ticket out of the Big South, and then COVID canceled their party. And guess what? They didn't sulk. They didn't complain. They didn't cry about it. They got in the gym and they got better. 23-1 this year in the Big South. I know they didn't play anybody. They're also 23-1. They returned pretty much the entire team from last year. They're well coached, and that's a team nobody wants to face. It might be the sexy pick, and people might like it. I don't care. I took the points, took 7, still like 6.5. This is upset alert city for Villanova. They better be careful.
Yeah, it does feel like a bit of a square dog, but I'm with you here. Winthrop has to be the side. They have a guy on the wing who leads the country in triple doubles. And remember, the 12-5 is historically the upset spot. Okay, 35 of the last 40 tournaments, a 12 has beaten a 5. If you didn't like UCSB out west, okay, this is for you, Winthrop. All right, let's move on to the next game in the bracket. It is Purdue, 7.5-point favorites over the North Texas Mean Green. St. Patrick's Day Mean Green. Are you feeling that, Sammy? Go ahead.
You don't sound like you're excited for this beatdown Purdue's about to lay on the tracks here when the train comes through. And Trevion Williams at 6'10", 270 in the paint, and Zach Edey, the freshman, 7'4", 285. Like, this could be like the game when the 8th graders play the 3rd graders and they just hold the ball up. This could get ugly in the paint. And I know Purdue didn't have the greatest stretch in March and at the end of February, but this is still a talented team that wins with toughness. They're tough to score against. They're top 25 in offensive and defensive efficiency. I'd be careful here. If they don't get their rebounds, they could be down a whole lot late in this game, and then they're going to have to chase and get crushed.
So I wonder, that's all. I love all that. Trevion Williams is money. Why isn't the spread bigger? And, this is a Purdue team I think can make a run here to the Elite Eight. We'll get into that a little deeper. I just worry this is a bit of a young team. Purdue, 3 freshmen in the rotation. Meanwhile, you look at North Texas, 5 seniors. I know they don't have a big, but this is a battle-tested team. They've faced elite teams this season, Loyola, Arkansas, West Virginia. They didn't win any of those games, but they are battle-tested, kind of like a Wisconsin. I think they can hang around in this game and make it interesting. I think they can cover. Matt Painter, though, 15-5 against the spread in the first 2 rounds. He's been a cash cow for Purdue. I like Purdue long-term, but I'm going to go with North Texas in this one.
Yeah, I like Purdue. I like Painter for the reasons you said, but I think this is just a different test as far as scoring the basketball. They played a lot of teams that don't play any defense, offer no resistance on the dribble drives, and they leave that corner 3 wide open. Purdue does none of those things. So schematically, it's a bad matchup.
All right, let's move on to the 6-11 matchup. This is going to be a rock fight. This will be a knockdown, drag-out, foul fest. Texas Tech, 4-point favorites over Utah State. Everybody knows Chris Beard took Texas Tech to the title game a couple years ago, lost to UVA. He's got kind of a new team led by a hot shot from Georgetown, the transfer Mac McClung. He's a high-wire act. I do like watching the kid. However, Utah State, an elite defensive team, Sam. They have one of the best rim protectors in the country in Queta. He will play in the NBA. 7-footer. Texas Tech thin inside. Can you make a case for the dog here?
I would not want to lay points with Texas Tech. That's for sure. I mean, that's a team that I'm looking at, like, if they win this game and maybe eke by with a 2 or 3 point win, like, this is one of those spots where you can set up your play for the next round. And as we know, it's likely if Tech does win this game, they will be the pup in round number 2. So that's something that I'm sort of looking ahead to. This total at 131 tells you everything you need to know. This is going to be a grinder. This will be walks up and down the court. This is not going to be Colgate in Arkansas. That's for sure. This is the polar opposite. So it'll come down to defense. Both teams, very good bunches on defense. If anything in this game, I'd probably go under 131.
Yeah, I'm with you. I definitely like the under. And you look at the free throw shooting, and Texas Tech, average-ish. You need better from that from a Chris Beard team. Listen, long-term, this is a bye team, Texas Tech. But this is just not an ideal matchup. All right, let's get to the game. The 3-14 matchup Sammy alluded to. It's a track meet, folks. Arkansas, Colgate. Interesting number here, 8.5 for Arkansas. And Sam, Colgate's one of these teams where, you know, you look at their resume, everybody's looking at Ken Pom, and it's like, wait a minute, who have they played? The answer is nobody. The numbers are great, but I'm telling you, they haven't faced a team in the top 150 this season. And to me, I don't know what to make of that. I know the best player on the floor is Moody, the freshman at Arkansas. He'll be a top 11 pick in the draft. I lean Arkansas here, but the best bet, the over, obviously, right?
And you missed the move on the over. I mean, this thing opened up as the brackets came out and most people were looking at their brackets. The board was lighting up like a Christmas tree. This total actually opened at 157. And we're looking at a 160.5 right now at Fox Bet. But this thing actually got even higher. It got to 163. So it got blitzed, 6 points up. Obviously, there's some buyback on the other side on the under, so we're sort of settling in the middle at this point. But I think the best play in this game is the team total. Fox Bet lets you do team totals. They give you 85 on Arkansas, over or under. If they're hot from three, they could score 100. And that's not hyperbole. We know Colgate wants to play fast. These are two of the fastest tempo teams in the entire field. Them playing together equals a lot of shots and a lot of possessions. I don't like laying 8.5 with a team that plays at that tempo, but this could be 90 to 82. If that's the case, I like Arkansas over on the team total.
Okay, a little exotic here. I like it. I like it. Let's move on to the next game, 7-10. This is a weird matchup, folks. I don't know really how to sell this. The line, pick 'em. COVID has wrecked both of these teams since February. I mean, Virginia Tech has beaten nobody in forever. Florida, pretty much the same thing. Their best player went down in the preseason with an injury, hasn't played a minute all season. This is probably, Sammy, for me, the least sexy game. And I'm a guy who went to Virginia Tech for 2 years. Okay, this is one of the least sexy games in the first round. I wouldn't take your money, Sam, and pick a side here. I would just take your money and pocket it, save it for something else.
Don't lie, you would take my money and you'd probably bet something on this game. Yeah, this is one of those games where people are going to look at it and go, can I tease it? You know, they don't know what to do. Look, if I pick this game 100 times, it'll be 50-50. Florida would win 50, Virginia Tech would win 50, and that's why we have the point spread of a pick'em. Total in the game, more interesting market movement. This total opened 137, and we're starting to see 135 and even 134. So respected money, at least on a Wednesday so far, is on the under. But I would be lying if I said I had a side in this game. It's like whoever wakes up on the right side of the bed is going to win. If you know that, you let me know, and then we can fire together.
Conviction. Love it. All right, let's move on to the 2 versus 15. Ohio State, Oral Roberts. Now, I think this opened 17, so somebody took a bite out of Oral Roberts. They do have the nation's leading scorer. They will look to put up buckets. Let me just make the case quickly. Hopefully, Mark Titus, when he joins us, doesn't kill me for saying this. I just wonder, Sammy, if Ohio State's a little overvalued. They just went through a grueling Big Ten tournament. 4 tough games, okay? This is a team that has to be tired. All close games in the Big Ten. 2 of them went overtime. Easy for them to overlook Oral Roberts. I think Oral Roberts can stay plucky. If you want to maybe take a nibble on first half, this will be interesting at some point beyond the first 5 minutes. I like Ohio State a lot. Something tells me they're going to come in a little sluggish here.
I think you're sort of onto something here, potentially cutting the game in half, because I don't know that Oral Roberts can hang around for 40. But if Ohio State is in fact sluggish and maybe a little tired after the gauntlet they went through in the Big Ten, which, by the way, in the title game, they went to overtime against Illinois and got that cover from 3 at the very end at the buzzer. If they're a little sleepy, this is a play where if you do like Ohio State to be sluggish, you look at Oral Roberts in the first half. Cut the 16.5 in half. You could find 8.5 or even 9 if you shop around here. If you like Oral Roberts, I'm in agreement. It's probably first half or pass.
I love it. All right, let's wrap up the region. Sammy P., you're on deck first. Who you got coming out of this region?
Oh, this one's tough. This one's very tough because I think, there are so many squads you could look at here. I think this is one of the most wide open regions. I don't like Baylor. I'm selling Baylor. I think that they've been completely janky. They were playing their best basketball in November and December. I like Ohio State. They might not cover in the first game. They might not cover in any game in the region, but I think they actually have a chance here. I like them to win the region at 4-1. 100 makes me 4. Again, you're buying into the fact that Gonzaga is really good in the West, and in this region, Baylor's very good. It makes the odds a little bit high on everybody else. 4-1 on a 2 seed is not a bad pop. Give me the Buckeyes to get it done. They will go as far as Liddell and Washington go, and I like them a whole lot out of the Big Ten.
I like where you're at. I like where your mind is at on Ohio State. Their half is pretty weak, but I'm riding with Baylor. And I hate to take a favorite. Minus 125. You know I don't want to lay that. But I look at this team as 18-0, the COVID pause, struggling to kind of bounce back. And now it feels like maybe Scott Drew can rally the troops. Now, I will say this about Scott Drew. He has had some colossal March letdowns, okay? I know there's the whole can Scott Drew coach argument, and maybe Mark Titus can settle that a little later in the show. I just believe this is the year. They've got 2 first-round picks, and then another kid who may be a first-rounder who's only playing 14 minutes a night. They rotate in a lot of guys. They're very fungible on the wings. They can defend multiple positions. I just think people are sleeping on Baylor because of how they've stumbled here late. And personally, I'm not worried about them. Give me Baylor to win the South. All right, here we go. Now, this is the region where I think we could say all hell is going to break loose. Can I say that word, Sammy? Can I say that? Michigan, a #1 seed. They are limping into March Madness. Second leading scorer, Livers, down for the count, will not play. They did not look great, okay, in the Big Ten tournament. Any thoughts, Sammy P., on Michigan here in the first round?
This region is a bear for starters, but in the first round, I mean, this will be a cakewalk for Michigan. We're talking about no matter who they play, they're going to be a 20-point favorite, even without Livers. And I know Dickinson, he's going to give it a go, but he took a shot against Ohio State, and he even had to go to the sideline for a while. Michigan will get through this one. It'll get tougher down the road, especially a potential matchup with Florida State. Oh, look out for that one. But early on, Michigan probably won't have many problems, especially not in round one. J-Mac, they're going to be a 20-point favorite no matter what.
Yeah, I think anybody I've talked to this week gambling on the tournament, doing brackets, has Michigan as the first #1 seed out. I'm sure you're hearing much of the same. They ain't losing in the first round, obviously. Although, Juwan Howard's first NCAA tournament with the Wolverines. Let's see how he handles some of this adversity. All right, let's move on to the 8-9 game. This is spicy. If you ask me to rank, Sam, the best games in the first round, this right here is it. The Bonnies, who get all the love in the media because a bunch of journalists went to St. Bonaventure, they're a good team. But, Sam, I look at the resume. It's paper thin. I mean, they haven't really beaten anybody good. The division, I thought the A-10 was not great this year, and I kind of am in love with LSU. Talk me out of LSU, Sam.
Kind of in love. I love that phrase. I'm kind of in love. Not all the way in love. I'm kind of in love. I think if you rank the conferences, and I put Big Ten 1, Big 12 2, SEC 3, Big East 4. So if you're playing into the power of your conference, which I often do, it's hard to shy away from the LSU side. But the Bonnies, they're just a dangerous basketball team because they don't, sort of like Wisconsin, they don't really beat themselves. Look, this is a pass for me. The 8-9s are the hardest ones. Like, if there's an 8-9 game and the line is pick or 1 or 2, the bookmakers are telling you, we don't even know who's favored. And that's about, the origination of the number. Like, if a favorite is a 10-point favorite, like, oh, this is bad for the dog. If a favorite is a 5-point favorite, it's probably bad for the favorite. If the game is 1 or 2 or pick, the books don't even know what to do. So I don't know what to do. Like I said, it's a coin flip match. LSU is going to win 50. Bonnies are going to win 50. I can't put my money on a 50-50.
Yeah. If you want to have some skin in the game because the game's awesome and it's probably going to come down to the end. I mean, it's tough for me to look at St. Bonaventure's resume and say, okay, who are the best players they face this year, Sam? Well, Bones Highland at VCU, very good, and the kid Grady at Davidson, who's probably going to be a pro. LSU has 2 guys who are better than anyone St. Bonaventure's seen. Cam Thomas is a lottery pick. He can get buckets at all 3 levels. And then the kid Watford, who'll give you 30 at the drop of a hat. So, I mean, I really like this LSU team, but we'll see. This game does scare me. Let's move on to the next game. And this one is a battle of Colorado, who's extremely good from the foul line, and Georgetown, who's extremely hot. Hoyas come in. Team I grew up rooting for, Sammy, in the Northeast. Georgetown Hoyas, Patrick Ewing, Big East tournament victory. And Georgetown comes in as a big 5.5-point dog here. Where are you at on this game?
Look, the metrics will tell you Colorado's the side, but there's something to be said about the run that Georgetown just went on. I mean, they went through a gauntlet, which they had to win, by the way, to get in. Like, if they don't win the Big East, they're not a tournament team. So there's something to be said there. Some people worry about the fatigue when you do go through a conference tournament. Georgetown's playing really good basketball right now. And I know the numbers and the metrics, guys, they love Colorado here. There will be some bites on the apple, too. We've already seen some 5.5s go down to 5. This is a really good line, but it's hard to fade a team like Georgetown that has just been so hot and playing so well together. They're not in here, on a field trip. They're in here to win, and I think this is a good line. I'd probably take the points with the Hoyas.
Interesting. I'm kind of siding with you, but I will say this Colorado team is good. The kid McKinley Wright, probably the best point guard they've had since Chauncey Billups at Colorado. They are the second best free throw shooting team in the country. I don't know about you, Sam. I like being on the side of the good free throw shooting team in a close game. This is another 5-12 matchup. You know the Dogs tend to pull upsets in that historically. This is a great game. Let's move on to the 4-13 matchup. The Seminoles, 10.5-point favorites over UNCG. Sam, Florida State is a team I like a lot. It's like that team that walks through the airport and you're like, oh my gosh, what NBA team is that? They've got size and length that is just like, they're enormous. UNCG, one of the worst offensive teams in the field. For me, this is a smash spot. I like the Seminoles.
I'd lay the number 2. I mean, it's all fine and dandy until you play a team that looks like they're all 40 years old. I mean, they just the length and the wingspans that they have at Florida State. Leonard Hamilton's done a good job. I like him more, to be perfectly honest. I like him more when he's an underdog. I think he's been very advantageous for a lot of bankrolls. You don't make a lot of money laying big numbers with Florida State over the long haul. But in this matchup against Greensboro, I mean, you said it best. They can't throw a rock in the ocean from the beach. It's hard to watch. And this is one of those games where Florida State could certainly suffocate them. The number tells you the story. You're starting to see some 10.5s turn into 11s as well. I'd be careful with the pup.
Yeah, lottery pick in Scotty Barnes, a great point guard in MJ Walker. And as Sam said, UNCG, 312th in the country in three-point shooting. FSU may hold them to like 45 points. I'm not even exaggerating. Let's cycle up to the next game here. BYU, the Cougars, 3-time losers to undefeated Gonzaga. They lost by double digits in each game, but did scare them in the conference title game. BYU will play the winner of Michigan State and UCLA, probably the sexiest play-in game, right? You get Izzo, you get the historically great UCLA team. Anything here on this one, Sam?
Yeah, I would look at the dog in the matchup. I mean, depending on who comes through, we've already seen some money on Michigan State. This thing was straddling around a pick on the open. Some books had Michigan State -1. We've seen some 2 because we know people love Tom Izzo in March, and that's the deal. But one bookmaker told me once, J-Mac, if you must win, you must not be that good. I don't know if that's entirely the case with Michigan State or UCLA for that matter, but this will be a team where whoever wins of the 2, I like State to win, but barely. If they get in and you're going to give me 2, 2.5, or 3 points against BYU, I would definitely be interested at fading the Cougars.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you there. But moving on to the next game, the 3-14 matchup, we know Texas is crushing whoever wins that one, right? That Texas Longhorns, a team I am falling in love with. Have you noted that, I'm falling in love with the teams with great players who are fun to watch up and down the court? Shaka Smart, great coach. Texas, 9-point favorites over Abilene Christian. Texas, 2 big kids who are going to be first-round picks. They got a good backcourt. The aforementioned Shaka Smart. How is this only 9, Sam? What am I missing here?
Well, because there's respect for Abilene Christian, apparently, and people think that they can hit the 3-point shot. I mean, that's what people taking spreads of 9, 10, 11, and 12 are doing. You're essentially betting on a team that can get hot from 3 and hopefully hang in the game. We've seen many dogs over the years go up against a very good defensive team like Texas and go 3 of 20 in their first 23-point shots. And that's a recipe for disaster against Texas. I sort of talked about this earlier with Arkansas. If you look at the team total for Texas, this is a play where they're just going to probably just score and score and score. The total, 140.5. This is up from 139. So we have seen some money on the over. I don't know that Texas covers this big number, but I like them to score a lot of points. This could be another team total over on the favorite.
Yeah, if you're doing one of these silly money line parlays, just make sure you have Texas on it. They are not losing this game. All right, let's move on to the bottom, the 7-10 matchup. This is right there with Florida and Georgia Tech, right? Just not that interesting. UConn and Maryland. UConn, a 2.5-point favorite against the Terps. Listen, Maryland has been up and down all season. They're a fun team, but I got to ride UConn here. Book Knight, the scoring machine. He could go for 30 in this one easily. The advanced metrics like this UConn team, I don't love them as much as the advanced numbers do. I don't know what I'm missing here. But UConn 2.5 is my pick here. Sammy P, do you have a side you like?
The side, not really. I mean, I wouldn't hate taking the points with Maryland, but I think it's sort of an under game no matter what. I know we're talking mostly about sides here. I would lean to the Maryland side. Again, Big Ten. I think the Big Ten is going to have a very good tournament. Obviously, I have 2 Final Four teams out of the Big Ten, but the total in this one, this could be, J-Mac, the first 60. This will be a slow game. There will be a lot of good defense here. 130 seems a little bit too high. I thought it would be around 125, 126. So if anything in this game with the 7-10, I like the under.
Yeah, Book Knight is a Jordan Clarkson type guy. Have this game on the corner TV, and you'll just see him tossing out some crazy shots. He'll take like 25 shots a game, make like 10, get to the foul line. I like UConn. All right, let's round out the region with Alabama. Roll damn Tide. 17-point favorites over Iona. This is an Alabama team. I don't want to repeat myself, but man, a lot of people like the Tide right now. They are a fashionable pick to get to the Final Four. That SEC tournament, one of the better years in the SEC's had, and Kentucky stinks this year. Alabama, man, they are really good on the wing. Very flexible team. Big number here against a guy we're familiar with from March Madness. Who you got here, Sammy?
I'm taking Pitino. I don't care. This is a coach play for me. He's got 2 senior guards that aren't scared of anybody. They're not scared of Colgate. They're not scared of Tennessee Tech. They're not scared of Alabama. They are ruthless, and they want the ball with the game on the line. You know there's going to be a point, though, in this game, J-Mac, when Alabama's up 15-16, and it starts to get a little hairy if you have the dog. I still think it's too many points. I'm taking the 17. It's a plug-and-play. I love Rick Pitino. I wish he wore the white coat for this one. I'm taking the 17 with the Gales.
You love Rick Pitino. That just opened up a lot of jokes that I could make that I will not, because we are family programming here. I will say this. I like Iona first half. I think that's a smart play. Alabama probably comes in a little gassed up. All right, wrapping up the region. Who you got, Sammy P?
This region, I've got to go Alabama. I love I just picked against Alabama with the points. But again, you're going to spot me 17 against Alabama. That's different than finding a team to win the region. Nate Oates, been following this guy since he was the head coach at Buffalo. That was a team that got really hot. Remember, they went to the Sweet 16, knocked off Arizona. I love their stretch offense. They've got 5 guys on the floor that can fling it. And if you can't stop one, they share it. Extra hockey pass into the corner. They are very good on offense. But defensively, they're the best defensive team in this region. Ken Pom has them number 2 in defensive efficiency here. It's a gauntlet at the bottom with some good teams, UConn, Texas. But Alabama has something to prove here. Already won the SEC title, and now they want the big title. I like them at plus 400 to win the region.
I don't hate that, and I also like Nate Oates a lot. However, I'm going with Florida State. I just think their bracket is a little easier, and at plus 500, I mean, they have Colorado or Georgetown, neither of those teams can hang with FSU in the East, and I'm not a believer in Michigan at this juncture. I like your Alabama play, but that Alabama-Texas game, that could go down to the wire. It feels like a coin toss. I get Florida State at plus 500. This is a Florida State team that has its eye on round 3 with Gonzaga. They've squared off twice in NCAA tournaments with them. Beat them once, lost to them the other time. Round 3 will be fun in the Final Four, assuming it happens. All right, let's get to our final bracket, the Midwest region. Before we get to Mark Titus, let's start at the top. Illinois, Drexel. We can sum this one up quickly. Payne, right? That pretty much covers it. Illinois, 22-point favorites against the Drexel Dragons. I don't know what there is to say about Illinois. They're probably the second best team in the tournament comprehensively after Gonzaga. They got a great point guard who will be a pro. They got a big guy in Coburn who, my goodness, is just a monster inside, grabbing everything. Drexel has no chance. Sammy P, your thoughts?
Yeah, I hate the big numbers, man. Like, I wish this was 18 or 17 and a half or something like that. I mean, look, Illinois could win this game by 30 or 35, but what is their goal here? Do they want to win by 20 or 30? I don't know. Like, you're not going to catch me laying anything over 10 let alone 20. So it's more of how serious will Illinois take Drexel, and can Drexel score 40 points? Like, I have too many questions about this game. We'll get into how I feel about Illinois, obviously, much later, but I'm not laying 22, and I'm certainly not taking 22 with the Drexel Dragons.
Yeah, those big numbers. Be careful, ladies and gentlemen. All right, moving on. Loyola Chicago 8-9 game. This is one of the 5 best first-round matchups, folks. Loyola now 3-point favorites against Georgia Tech. Now, the latest is there was a COVID issue on Georgia Tech. They have not revealed who the player is, but someone will miss the game. Now, we don't know if that's their great point guard, Alvarado, the ACC Player of the Year, and the big kid, Moses. I just don't know how to bet this game. I don't really like Loyola favored by 3 here. This is a damn good defensive team in Georgia Tech. And I just wonder, Sam, you know that region well. Illinois, Loyola, that's all the talk right now anybody's talking about. Any chance Georgia Tech catches them napping, Loyola looking ahead to Illinois?
Yeah, this number has gotten too far. I mean, it's gone too high. I mean, the fact that it's 3 right now makes me extremely nervous. Like, I was a little sketchy on Loyola at pick at -1, and now that it's 3, oof, this makes me nervous. J-Mac, this happens when a team, though, from out of nowhere comes and gets hot and goes to the Final Four. We saw this with George Mason about 15 years ago. Everybody loved George Mason the following year because they saw them make a deep run. Same thing with Loyola. We know they went to the Final Four a couple years back, but you're sort of paying a tax and you're paying for past performance with Loyola. It's a good team, but I'm in no rush to lay 3. At this number, I would actually take the points with the dog here.
I'm contractually obligated to just say the words Sister Jean. All right, let's move on to Tennessee and Oregon State. Tennessee, 8-point favorites against Oregon State. Beavers would not be here if not for that great run in the Pac-12 tournament. I got to say, this number feels fishy with Tennessee. I don't know that I trust them. They've had some injuries. Sammy P., do you have a read on this one? Because I'm leaning to the Beavers, but not with any conviction.
Yeah, this is a Mark Titus team. You know, he told me a couple months ago he liked Tennessee. They were like 40-1 to win the national title, and those odds obviously no longer available. It's with defense here. And if you see a number 8, it should make you nervous. It's like a team just got hot. They were 100-1 to win the Pac-12 at some books. They win the Pac-12 tournament, and they're catching 8, and you're like, oh, my God, I need to take the 8. And it's like, yeah, Tennessee could win this game, though, by 20 because it's the SEC against the soft-ass Pac-12. So I think it's a matter of trying to avoid the landmine here with Oregon State. I like Tennessee. I don't know how far they can go, but this is a bad matchup for Oregon State, and the number tells you that.
Yeah, I'm going to whisper 2 words. Rick Barnes. That's it. I think that's all I need to say. Rick Barnes. We know what he does in March. He's a choke artist. All right, Oklahoma State. That's harsh. Sorry, Rick. Oklahoma State against Liberty. This is the Cade Cunningham Bowl. Cade Cunningham, best player in the tournament. I don't think anybody would disagree, but this is a plucky Liberty team. Be careful. Sam likes to talk about paying a tax. This Cade Cunningham tax is real. Oklahoma State's a good team. I don't know that they're worth being 7-point favorites against Liberty here. Sam, do you have any action on this one?
Yeah, and think about what Oklahoma State did over the weekend with a win over Baylor. I mean, if they don't beat Baylor, yeah, obviously the seeding is different. There would be a trickle-down effect. But if they don't beat Baylor, this line's 4 or 5. We just watched Oklahoma State go on a nice run over the weekend, and that's built into the line here. I like Oklahoma State to advance in the bracket. I think that would be a dangerous matchup for Illinois because they really struggle with great scores, and Cunningham's certainly one of those guys. I don't love Liberty, though, either. You know, if I had to play it or pass it, I'd probably pass it, but lean to the favorite, laying a touchdown.
Yeah, I'll just point this out. Liberty has 4 guys who shot over 40% from 3 this year. I know, consider the competition. Just putting that out there with a big number like 7, good 3-point shooters, I'm usually tending toward the dog. All right, let's move on to the 6-11 matchup. It's a couple big names here. San Diego State, 3-point favorites over the Cuse and Jim Boeheim. San Diego State last year was headed toward a #1 seed, greatest season in school history. COVID wrecked that, and now they're favored by 3 over Syracuse. Sam, I'm leaning toward the Fighting Jim Boeheims getting points here. I kind of like their backcourt. We know they've had some historic runs in March. Buddy Boeheim is a fun name to say out loud or at a bar if you're doing that during March Madness. I'm taking Syracuse getting 3 here.
Don't forget about Dolezaj, my guy Dolezaj.
Yes.
Can you spell Dolezaj? You probably can.
I cannot.
Defensively, Syracuse is not a top 10 unit like they've been many times over the last decade. But if you look at some of the numbers in the advanced analytics, they're actually one of the better offenses that Jim Boeheim has had. Look, I'll say this. You can prep for the Syracuse 2-3 zone. You can prepare for it. But until you face it in person, you don't know what you're up for. And even though metrically and statistically they didn't do well efficiency like they've done in years past, it's still a bunch of long dudes that get out and they rotate exceptionally well. The fact that this number has gotten all the way to 3, I'm taking the 3 points with the orange. This will be tied with 30 seconds left to go. And in that case, I will take the points. It's a coin flip game, but the spread has gotten too far off. I like 3 with Boeheim.
Yeah, the fun chess match is that 2-3 matchup zone you talked about. Well, San Diego State, 4 senior starters, and they're 28th in the country in three-point shooting. So it's there if they can get the shots. But again, you know, I'm sure Mark Titus will tell us they practiced shooting threes while guys held a broom in their face because that's what the length is like from the Syracuse defense. All right, let's move on. Press Virginia, 12.5-point favorites against Morehead State. You look like a Bob Huggins guy, Sammy. Are you? Huggins, 12.5-point favorites here. You taking that or no?
I don't know how to respond to that, but no, I am not taking the points or laying the points. I am not touching this game. Look, I will say this. If I asked probably 50 people who they like in the game, I think 51 would say West Virginia. And naturally, that makes me very nervous. Everybody's looking at this game in the bracket like it's a free space. This reminds me a lot of that Missouri-Norfolk State game, I think maybe like 10 years ago or so, when everybody moved Missouri. Free space, no doubt, and then Norfolk State gets it done with, I believe, a guy named Kyle O'Quinn. I could be wrong on that.
Yes.
But, Titus will have to check me on that one. This is a game where nobody's talking about Morehead State. Nobody's betting Morehead State. And this line really hasn't budged. I'd be nervous about laying this big number with the Mountaineers.
Yeah, I called them Press Virginia. They're only 65th in the country in defense, and they have one win, Sammy, over an NCAA tournament team in the last 5 weeks. So limping to the finish might be generous for West Virginia. All right, coming up next, Clemson and Rutgers. Some interesting line movement on the 7-10 game here. I don't like Clemson at all. I am financially invested in Rutgers. I have been since this line came out. I think Rutgers is an interesting team. They play great defense. You've alluded to it a lot, the Big Ten. Rutgers, good defensive team, good guards. Ron Harper's kid playing for Rutgers. I like Rutgers a lot here.
My favorite play in this game is actually the under, and this is one of my favorites. I wrote it up for Fox Sports. I think this is the first to 55. Woo. You know, Howard Moore used to coach at UIC, and he was under Bo Ryan at Wisconsin, and he used to always say the first to 60. This might be the first to 55 because this game is going to suck to watch if you're a fan of offense. That's for sure. There aren't many shooters on the floor, and they deliberately walk this ball up and down the floor. 2 top 20 defenses in almost every single statistical category. This line is where it is for a reason. There's a reason that some totals are 160. There's a reason that other totals are 125.5. And this is not going to be a fun game to watch. I love the under. I went under 126.5. Obviously, still like it at 125.5.
Yeah,
under.
I think that's the lowest first round total. All right, let's wrap up with a 2-15 game. Houston, a 2 seed, favored by 20? I mean, this is staggering, but Cleveland State is the opponent. Houston, you know, somebody sent me a link from the Wall Street Journal that you need to bet on Houston to win your bracket. And my first question is like, okay, can the general fan name 3 guys on Houston? Do they know Kelvin Sampson, who got the book thrown at him for cheating at his last stop, is the coach here? He's a good coach. I like Houston here. Great defensive team. Sammy P, 20's a big number. But this is a Houston team that will just suffocate you defensively. I think they squeeze the life out here of an overwhelmed opponent and win handily.
Well, it's going to be hard for Cleveland State to score, but you look at the total, 135.5. That's a pretty low total. I mean, your average total in this tournament is about 144, 145. This is much lower. So you're giving me 20 points with a game that's totaled at 135. If I'm a math guy, and I sometimes pretend to be one on Zoom or whatever, this is a pretty high number with a very low total. So it's sort of correlated here. If you like Houston, you probably like the over. If you like Cleveland State, you should lean to the under.
All right, so here we go. In the region, Interesting breakdown here, Sammy, of the teams. It seems a little top-heavy. We'll get your pick first to go to the Final Four.
Yeah, I believe this is my first #1 seed and only #1 seed in the Final Four. ILL, baby. Who's been better than them in the last 3 weeks? They wrap up the regular season. They win on the road at Wisconsin, at Michigan. And then, oh, by the way, they win against Ohio State. I mean, nobody had a better stretch of 3 wins in the entire country all season long. And then, oh, by the way, they win the Big Ten. I think they have the best finisher in the country in DeSumo. And I think with Kofi Coburn inside, the big 7-footer, they can go in, they can go out. And I'm not high on Houston at the bottom. I think their toughest matchup potentially is with Oklahoma State. I don't want to face that landmine, but as long as they avoid the pokes, I like Illinois to cut down the nets and go back to the Final Four.
Interesting. Illinois, obviously, a great team. I'm surprised they're plus 145. Everybody seems to love them. I'm surprised there's a plus there and not a minus. My pick here is Houston, which Sam does not like at all. Give me Quentin Grimes and Sasser. I just like this team. I like the cut of their jib, Sammy. I like how on the wings they can squeeze you to death. Top 20 defensive team. And I know the schedule wasn't brutal, but if you look at this region, the way it shakes out, we just both said we're not believers in West Virginia. Neither of us like San Diego State or Syracuse. If Houston doesn't stumble against Rutgers, they're in the Elite Eight. And I think the top half has more landmines. Like you said, Cade Cunningham, Tennessee. I think Illinois is more likely to stumble than Houston. So I went with the Cougars. All right. You guys have been waiting, I think 50 minutes now, 55 minutes for our guest here. He is a college basketball expert. He played at the Ohio State University. He's a legend. His name is Mark Titus, and he is joining us now. Titus, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you guys just talking all that smack about me while I'm sitting here muted and you're not bringing me in yet. That was great. I'm ready. I'm fired up, though. You got me fired up. That's exactly what I needed. I'm here to fire off some takes and make some sense out of this show, you know?
Yeah, that's what we brought you in for. You're going to fire on us. First of all, any big picture thoughts on what you just witnessed from us? Do you like the gambling? Did you hate it? Did you want to unmute and yell at us?
J-Mac, you and I are very different on Houston, I would say. I've hated Houston basically all year, and I will continue to hate Houston. Make the Final Four, and I would still be calling them frauds. So that's where I've arrived here. But, you know, it's March Madness. Anything can happen. I do like their draw. I will agree with you in that. Like, Houston got a favorable draw, and the bottom half of that Midwest region is looking pretty suspect in my eyes. So there is that, but I do not love Houston.
Okay, so we're going to give you 3 games that Sammy and I disagree on. You are the judge. Your ruling is going to come in on my side usually because I'm very smart. Or Sammy's side. He's very intelligent as well. Let's start with Virginia and Ohio. This is one of the upset specials. I have money on Ohio getting points. I have them on the money line. Virginia's got COVID issues. Sam, sticking with the COVID Tony Bennett's. Who you got and why?
So I am the biggest Tony Bennett fan that has nothing to do with the University of Virginia. You'll find I believe in Bennett ball. I did not jump ship even when they lost to UMBC. I believed in the program and the direction of the program. I do not believe in Virginia in this game. I am with you, J-Mac. I think the COVID issues concern me with Virginia. This is Tony Bennett's worst defensive team he's had in a decade. That concerns me going up against an explosive Ohio offense. Which, by the way, as a reminder, went on a 40-0 run at one point this season against Cleveland State. And I get Cleveland State's a 15 seed, but I don't care who the opponent is. If they're Division I and you go 40-0 on them, that has my attention. And frankly, I think Jason Preston of Ohio is going to be the best player on the floor, and that matters in March. And I don't necessarily, I wouldn't put my life savings on Ohio pulling the upset, but 7 points seems ridiculous to me, and I like Ohio. And plus, I'm an Ohio guy, so shout out to all my people back home.
All right. So
what's ridiculous is you taking 7 points when you could have taken 10.5 or 10 or 9.5 or 9. I mean, if we're talking right team, right price, this is the time to lay it with Virginia. And I think everybody in their right mind thinks that Ohio is going, like Jay Billis and like Andy Katz, like everybody is saying Ohio is going to win this game. Like the casinos they're stupid. Like there's a reason this line is 7 and not 4 or 3 or 2. I mean, some people might even think Ohio should be favored with the way they talk about how good they're from the MAC. I know you love Jeff Bowles, Titus, but good Lord, pump the brakes a little bit.
I do. So the casinos have never been wrong, Sammy? Is that what you're telling me?
No, I didn't say that. No, I didn't say that. No.
All right, let's move on to the next game. That Sammy and I really disagree on this one. Another Midwest team, Wisconsin, North Carolina. Sammy P is all over the Badgers, that great team that hasn't beaten anybody recently. Against North Carolina with a freshman backcourt, but all the big men in the country. I like North Carolina here, and I'm backing Roy Williams reluctantly. Titus, where are you at on this one?
I can't believe I'm saying this, J-Mac, but I think I agree with you again. And I'm wearing the Carolina blue. I don't know if that's what I got going on just subconsciously or what, but I have not liked this Wisconsin team all season. They have not impressed. I mean, their best wins of the year are Maryland, Rutgers, and Loyola Chicago. Those are the three teams that they're touting as our big wins: a 10 seed, a 10 seed, and an 8 seed. Those are their best wins of the season. They're 0-7 against tourney teams since the start of February. And frankly, they don't play well against big size. Like, part of their problem was the Big Ten is huge. There are a lot of great big men in the Big Ten. And North Carolina is going to throw an enormous front line at them that's deep and very, very big. And I think that's going to cause Wisconsin problems. And on top of it all, Roy is 29-0 in the first round. And I think Carolina is a young team that's like excited about the future, whereas Wisconsin is just a bunch of old dudes that are kind of checked out and ready to go pro in something other than sports,
Jeez, Sammy, he just called them old dudes.
Well, they're close to retirement at Wisconsin. I've heard it a million times. And Mark, I think we talked about this a couple months ago. Like, if one more person says that they're older than the Chicago Bulls, I might blow my brains out. Wisconsin, though, they're so good at protecting the ball, and that's so important to me in March. North Carolina has 20 turnovers on average per game. And I get that they have the size and they're very good on the offensive glass. You have to get the ball into the bigs. I mean, like, this is not an easy matchup for a team that loves to play up-tempo, play with speed and pace to face Wisconsin. This line is where it is for a reason, and we saw it touch 2. It came right back down to 1. So there's respected money on both sides, but I'm gonna ride with the Big Ten here. I think Wisconsin is gonna make Roy 29-1.
I will say the one thing that gives me pause is North Carolina never plays well against Virginia, and Wisconsin has a Virginia feel to how they play. So there is something there. But I think Wisconsin guys have just been looking at the calendar all season, just like, oh my God, we got 3 more weeks of this. Can we just get this thing over with already? I think they're excited to be done. They're ready to go fishing, those guys.
Okay, all right. Let's wrap up our 3 different side games with Purdue against North Texas, the Mean Green 7.5-point dogs. Titus, if you heard my case earlier, this is just a veteran Mean Green team. Purdue, young team. I know Trevion Williams is a monster, but you can't side with me on all 3 games, can you?
I don't think I can. Not in this one, Jay. The one thing I have pause on with this is that Purdue does not blow teams out. They have struggled to, and I don't know where 7.5 falls in terms of whether we're calling that a blowout or not. But Purdue doesn't beat the brakes off teams, but they win. They're very good. They're going to be at home. Pretty much at home. They're playing in Indiana. They're the only team from Indiana in this tournament that's taking place in Indiana. And what North Texas will try to do to Purdue is slow the game down and make it a defensive battle. Purdue is used to that. They enjoy that. That's a lot of the teams in the Big Ten play that way. And the teams that they played against that play that way, such as like Indiana, Maryland, Minnesota, like teams that do that. They're used to playing that way, and I think that Purdue will ultimately kind of have their way with North Texas, but I don't know. The 7.5 scares me. I could see North Texas covering, but they're not going to win. They're not going to come close to winning, I don't think.
Yeah. I think we both like Purdue to advance here. All right, let's get to what everybody's been waiting for. Final 4 picks. I'll quickly start with mine. Mark, go ahead and crush me for it. I don't have a number 1 seed going to the Final 4. I've got Oregon, a 7, shocking Iowa, then getting by Gonzaga. I've got Florida State. Love the Seminoles this year. Oh, I do have a number 1 seed, Baylor, the team that Sammy P hates. And I got Houston, which you've already taken a dump on. But I actually have the Baylor Bears. 18-0 start. They've kind of flopped here at the end. I just love what they can do on the wings. I think Scott Drew kind of comes over the hump with his March struggles and prevails and wins the championship.
Yeah, I disagree. I disagree with every single one of your picks, J-Mac. I could not disagree more. First of all, this is Gonzaga's tournament. It's Gonzaga versus the field. And listen, you don't have to beat Gonzaga to win the national title. We remember in 2015, Kentucky was the team to beat. Duke won the national title without beating Kentucky. So you can win the title without beating Gonzaga. But somebody's got to beat Gonzaga. And when I'm looking at their bracket, I mean, Gonzaga's already had their way with basically all the best contenders in the West. I don't see Gonzaga breaking a sweat until the Elite Eight, and frankly, I don't see a team in the Elite Eight that's going to challenge him. So I got Gonzaga. I got Ohio State, obviously, because Ohio State is just good enough to where I can't possibly pick against them. And Baylor's defensive issues worry me. Baylor, they got out to their big start because they were so great defensively. Since they come back from COVID pause, they haven't been quite as good defensively. So that's going to be a track meet, Baylor, Ohio State, and I like Ohio State to win that. And then for me, I'll go to the East. In the East, I like Florida State a lot. I have them in my Elite Eight, but there's something about this Texas team. They start playing Kai Jones over Greg Brown in the Big 12 championship. I feel like that might be the move that gets them back on track. I believe in this Texas team. I saw them in person in North Carolina. They look really good. They have an experienced backcourt. They play great defense when they want to. You can talk me into Texas. Because Michigan has if Livers can't go, I don't believe in Michigan. So I think Texas beats Alabama and Florida State. And then in the Midwest, it's a coin flip. Whoever wins the Illinois-Oklahoma State game, I'm taking. I think wow. I have Oklahoma State because it's just more fun to pick the upset. But honestly, if you held a gun to my head, I'd probably say Illinois. So, but put me down for Oklahoma State. So that's my Final Fours: Ohio State, Oklahoma State, Texas, and Gonzaga. I don't know how many of those are going to get right, but I know Gonzaga will be there. That's the one I feel most confident about.
All right. Sammy, why don't you reveal yours, and then, Titus can crush yours the way he crushed mine.
Well, he's going to crush the West for sure, and I totally understand that. But, Mark, I was coming from a standpoint of trying to make you money. I'm not going to tell you to lay 250 on Gonzaga to win 100. So I went a little bit deeper on the page from a value, well, we love that word value, standpoint. I like Kansas more than Iowa, and if it is, Kansas Gonzaga in that regional final, which I think it is, it's a pretty decent pop. It's 7-1 if I put that in my back pocket right now. Gonzaga probably goes, but if I'm looking for a betting value angle, I'm taking Kansas because defensively they have been locked in over the last 3 weeks. In the Michigan region, I'm going Alabama. Big Nate Oates fan. I like them a whole lot. If they're shooting successfully, they're not going to lose in that region. And then you parlay that with their defense, number 2 in the country in the KenPom defensive efficiency. I like them a lot there. I'm with the Buckeyes. I was very impressed with that run in the Big Ten. I thought they played Illinois, who's been playing at an A level for the last 3 weeks. They gave Illinois their best shot, and they could have won that game. They go to overtime and lose by 3. Like the Buckeyes there, and I'm playing into the Big Ten as well, the Illinois region. The only one seed I've got for the money, plus 145, plus 150 on Illinois. Io, Kofi, Brad Underwood has created a monster in Champaign, and they're finally excited about basketball again. It's been a long time since Bill Self and Bruce Weber were there, so that's my Final Four, and I've got to pick Illinois 7-1. It's the number. It's not really the style or the team. It's the number. I'll turn 100 into 700 on Illinois to win the whole enchilada, and that's the way I'm going to go.
I like it. I like the Alabama pick, honestly, because that to me, when I look at the East, I feel that way. The Texas-Alabama game in the Sweet 16 is your Final Four participant out of the East is how I feel about it. So Alabama, because, a lot of these teams, we look at them that shoot a ton of threes like Alabama does, and you say, what happens when you go cold? Alabama has one of the best defenses in the country, so that's a great backup plan for a cold night of shooting. I do like Alabama, but this is why I'm not a big gambler like you guys, because I just look at this and I say it's all Gonzaga's to lose. So that's the only team I really feel comfortable putting any money on.
All right, so Mark, did your dog Moses chime in yet? I'm sure your dog likes Kansas, right?
He's laying right here. He's frankly kind of bored by the show, it seems like. He's knocked out on the floor right now. He picked Cleveland State to go all the way in his bracket, so he's a pretty ballsy guy. He likes chaos. So he called his claim to fame is he called Florida Gulf Coast to the Sweet 16 in 2013, and I think he's just been kind of coasting on that. He hasn't really shown me much since then, so we'll see what happens.
All right, thanks for joining us, everybody. Mark Titus, Sammy P. I'm Jason McIntyre. We'll be back next week for Talk the Line Sweet 16 edition.